Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, engaging with international leaders on fighting climate change, on solving global crises, on standing up unequivocally for Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, don't worry, on this side of the House, we're used to casual homophobic comments from the other side of the House.
I'm going to ask the honourable member, please, to withdraw that comment.
Standing up to bullies requires us to call them out on their crap sometimes, and that's what I will do.
Just a taste there of a pretty tense exchange in the House of Commons this week that resulted in the Prime Minister having to withdraw comments. It's one of the latest heated exchanges for MPs, just 2 weeks back, if you can believe it, from their summer breaks. Is there a political cost to the back and forth battles? Let's bring back the front bench. Christy Clark, Gary Marr, and Tom Mulcair. All three of you have a lot of experience in legislatures. Tom, I'll start with you in the House of Commons. Do you have a sense that things are, I mean, I do. I was saying this earlier today. I've covered a lot of the ups and downs over 15 years, and it does feel particularly like, you know, you're on the edge of an election, basically. Do you think there is any kind of political impact for that, pardon me?
Great question, and I believe there is, because, you know, I remember in the, waning weeks and months of the Harper majority government, we were going at them pretty hard, but on an issue. It was the issue of the Senate scandal and spending. So there was substance to the debate. Here, it's nothing but personal. We saw that with Poilievre's very personal attacks against Singh last week in the House, that the Speaker, by the way, should never have allowed. And so he's trying to get a handle on it, but Greg Fergus is not a very strong Speaker. Let's just say that simply. So, yes, the politics involved here is the drumbeat of the Conservatives saying we're heading into an election. And it's the Liberals doing their best to push back. I have to say that I found Trudeau in pretty good form. He's not usually that strong. He's fighting back, and you can tell that it's coming from inside now, and it's not something that's been written down on a paper that he would sometimes hold shaking as he tried to give his answer. So he's internalizing this debate a lot more, but I also think this is a big risk in this for the Conservatives, because I think that sort of shrill tone on everything, put it another way, from a baseball point of view, if your only pitch is a hard ball to the head, they can just stand back from the plate. Canadians like debates. They don't mind them. They don't shy away from them. But they do want debates that have a modicum of substance. This is just theater. And I think Canadians are going to start to say, okay, Gary said before, he's not going to reveal, Poilievre's not going to reveal what he's got. Well, that's another way of saying there is a hidden agenda. That's another way of saying he's got intentions. Sometimes he lets them out and then he contradicts them. So what is the Conservative offer to Canadians in the eventual election, whether it's in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or a year? That's what Canadians are allowed to start asking. Poilievre's heat, everything that he throws with so much white heat, white phosphorus all the time, that's a way of saying that he doesn't want to talk about substance, and I think people are going to start to twig to that.
My sense is the Conservatives feel like, Gary, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they sort of have the latitude, just like Doug Ford did back in 2018 when there was such a ballot box question of change, that they don't need to reveal that stuff. There's no political imperative to do so till a lot later. I do take Tom's point about the questions being asked, and I certainly ask them myself, but I think that's sort of the thinking there. On the question of the back and forth and whether it means anything, what is your sense? Because Tom touched on this, like there is a lot of personal animosity there, and you can hear it and you can feel it.
Well, I think that's right. And let me say, first of all, I would have expected a baseball analogy to come from Gary Dewar, but not from Tom Mulcair. So that was a wonderful thing to see. High and inside and close to the head, a little chin music. Look, I think that, first of all, I think that, this business of whether Pierre Poilievre's got a hidden agenda, I think that he'll be plenty busy enough with his public agenda that he won't have time for a hidden agenda. That's the reality. But again, his job is to oppose. It's not to promote policies that fix things. That's the government's job to take care of that. And when we're into an election, he will reveal what his public agenda is. And I think that, to the point of what the public wants, I think the public polling shows that it wants the government and other parties to collaborate with one another and get things done. And this is to Minister Holland's point. But I would say that the views of what that something should be, broadly speaking, are too diametrically different between the Conservatives and the Liberals. And maybe you'll never get, on a broad sense, cooperation. Minister Holland used a small example of how Mike Lake, the Conservative member of Parliament, worked with him on the autism piece. That's a small piece, but on the big pictures of a vision for Canada, I think that perhaps it would be asking too much to expect that these two parties, the Liberals and the Conservatives, are ever going to be able to collaborate and cooperate with one another to get big things done. Maybe there's opportunity for small things, but not for the big ones.
Well, they have competing visions, right, for the country. So I take your point on that. Christy, last word to you on the tone and the tenor. Does it make a difference politically, do you think, at this point?
Yes, I think it makes a big difference. I think that both of them are auditioning for the election here, and people are starting to pay more and more attention as the potential for that gets closer. And they're looking at each of them and trying to get a feel for each of their characters. And I think that Tom is right when he says Poilievre really is, I mean, he didn't say this exactly, but I mean, he's taking a risk in being so negative and so poisonous sometimes in the House of Commons. He gets tons of media out of it, but I don't think people really love it. And there's always this question for voters, not just about the policies, but I think increasingly people think about the character of the people that they're voting for. And the contrast, I think, you see Pierre Poilievre has really taken on this, kind of dark tone that he's got, not a lot of details. And then on the other side, I think what you're seeing the Liberals have decided they're going to try and make Justin Trudeau a little more like he was in 2015, a little more casual, a little more relaxed. He's, doing the American talk shows and all that stuff. But I think you see him in the House of Commons just more relaxed, more common man, I guess. And that's what we're seeing happening now, is the audition for the election. And I do disagree with Gary on this. I know it's their job to just kind of hope that they can get to the election without telling anybody what they're actually going to do, what it's actually going to cost, how many cuts there actually might be. I mean, they want to skate that far, but it is the job of the government, and you too, Vassy, and the media, and I know you take that seriously, talking to them and trying to get them to actually tell us what they're going to do before we get to election day. That's their obligation. And I think, people want a little more from both sides here.
And we'll leave it on that note. That pretty much sums it up. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate a great discussion this evening. Our front bench, Gary Marr, Christy Clark, and Tom Mulcair. We've got more Power Play just ahead. Stay right there.